Hello and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug for parents going through the teenage years. I'm Rachel Richards, parenting coach, mother of 2 teenagers and 2 bonus daughters.
Hi, I'm Susie Asley, mindfulness coach, mindful therapist, musician and mother of 3 teenagers. 2 of them are twins.
Now, this isn't going to follow our usual format because we want to pause and take time to celebrate our 2-year anniversary.
Can't believe it.
I know, what a ride.
Yeah.
The great thing is we have got old episodes now which cover the sorts of things that people are going to be thinking about, like when my teenager is being difficult over Christmas.
Yeah, we did that last year, didn't we?
We did it last
and
year.
Presents.
We also entitled, the entitled teen in present. So those ones we can. What I'll do is at the end of this podcast, I'm going to create a blog and I'm going to have links to each of the things we talk about so that if you think, oh, I'd like to listen to that one, you can go through the blog and then find it.
Perfect.
Or you can just click on, stop us and go and listen to it in between.
Yeah.
So we're great believers in acknowledging special moments in our lives. And when I started this show, I don't know how much I was going to grow and flourish. I don't know. Did you? Have you flourished?
I don't know. What do you think?
And I want everybody. I want to encourage everybody to take time out of their day, your week, your year, to just think about those moments when you think, "Gosh, I have actually come a long way. I have changed." And it's good.
I think that's really important. I think as a culture, we're terrible at that. And maybe particularly as mothers, I don't know if that's a massive generalisation, but we don't. We look at all our negative bias, we look at all the stuff that's gone wrong and that we need to improve and be better at. So with like New Year's resolutions and stuff like that. But we often don't acknowledge what we have done.
Yes.
And it's really important, actually.
Really important.
I'm not good at that.
No, and I also have noticed recently a couple of comments which have actually stayed with me, and they are parents who said to me, you're doing so well. I'm not really, I'm not doing as much as you. And then I suddenly thought, wow, we still have this culture where we feel like parenting is competitive. It's not. No. Just because somebody's doing a bit more of this than you doesn't make any difference at all. You're still a great parent. No. So just hang on to that thought. If you're listening to this podcast, you're doing a great job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also feel really blessed to have this community because funnily enough, when we started doing this, we were just like, I don't know, is anyone going to listen?
Yeah, definitely.
I'd message my friends and go, hey, Kate, do you want to listen to my podcast? Yeah. And now we've got people downloading it all around the world, which is incredible. So thank you, everybody. And also for the amazing feedback.
Yeah, and it also, my kids keep me down to earth, which is lovely. I always have ringing in my ears. My son said right at the start, who's going to want to listen to you waffling on for half an hour? It's like, so I always remember that.
I'll listen. I wanted to sort of dwell on some of the reviews we've had. No, all of the reviews we've had, because people have taken time out of their busy days and actually sent us information about how it's impacted them. And that's incredible. So I just wanted to say, we both really find that incredibly heartwarming. But I've also learnt. Yeah. And there were a couple of the reviews that I wanted us to go over again, because for me, they had the most impact in the sense that they made me reflect on what it is we're trying to do here and how that then impacts people in the world. So why don't you start with Paul Simmons, who messaged us on Instagram?
Happily. And also I think, looking at feedback is really, really important, isn't it? Because it's very much the abundance mindset.
Yes.
It's like, the away from the competitive scarcity, if you've enjoyed something, then I make a conscious effort to kind of big people up.
Yes.
And, praise people and say, that's a great job, only when I mean it, obviously, otherwise it's insincere, but it's really important, rather than the competitive mindset.
And we can do that for other parents.
Yeah, so the feedback is really lovely, really, really lovely. So this one, it says, thank you. My wife and I just wish we had discovered your podcast a year ago. We've both listened, absorbed, and changed the way we parent off the back of such amazing insight of how our children see the world. Our home is now a calmer, more interactive and wholesome environment, and it's all down to you. Gosh, wow. We have finally realised that we have been the blockage to the communication with our girls and have changed. We now have so much happier girls who feel able to relax in the home environment. I'm not great with words. I don't know, you're doing a pretty good job.
Exactly.
But you've changed our world and you will never really know how indebted we are to you. Gosh, thank you. That's a really beautiful
It's a
review.
very beautifully written review. But for me, what really resonated was this, how we can be the block to the communication. And actually, when we start thinking, our job is not to fix our teens, because we think it is. And that's what Yannicka Lini said in her review. This is a lady who has a very stressful, busy life. And she said she spent ages trying to fix my teenager when I stumbled across these podcasts and discovered they don't need fixing, but understanding. You have helped me understand my daughter and be able to talk to her, handle her, and most importantly, help her get through this difficult time. Being that these podcasts come from presenters who actually have teenagers themselves, oh yes, makes the program real, because they really understand what we're going through and are able to advise us firsthand with what they did, how they handled it. Keep up the great work and thank you. And I think what I've always set out to do is do what I did in my parenting classes, which is when people see other people struggling with things or talking about things, they can say, oh, well, I wouldn't do that. Or, I can do that. I can see how you would do that. And there's a collective sigh where we just all go, so it's okay. I'm not broken. They're not broken.
Yeah. It's amazing. And the beautiful reviews that we get. I mean, I'm super touched by both of those, all of them. It's kind of blows my mind a little bit that can have that profound
that much
of
an impact. Yeah, it's great. I wanted to mention the consequences episode, because that is the most downloaded episode by a very, very, very long way. And the reason I want to mention it is because it's the thing that a lot of parents seem to worry about. And coming back to these last two reviews, both people have said, oh, I've realised now it's not about controlling my kid, fixing them, whatever it is that we think we should be doing. And it's really interesting because in that episode, that's when I discovered that there was a sort of, as a result of some psychological experiments that were done in the 60s, 70s, of controlled environments where they got, I think it was rats or pigeons or something to do something over and over, then you could make them behave a certain way. And they went, oh, well, you can do that. But we're not rats and pigeons. We're actually human beings and it doesn't work. And it's been debunked, but that's sort of hung around that if you make kids do this, then you'll get this outcome. And that had a big impact on me and my understanding of how to deal with my kids.
Yeah, amazing.
And we don't have a controlled environment. In fact, it's got even less control because of the access to online, and our kids are getting their information from all over the world.
Yeah, we don't have at all a controlled environment because we're all so different and have such different stories and backgrounds. It's impossible.
Yes. Are there any things that stood out to you that have...
Yeah, what have I learned over the last 2 years? Yeah, lots. I mean, I was thinking about it. I don't think I've fundamentally changed anything that I do. But I think it's given me a lot of clarity and understanding as to why I do what I do, like having to verbalize it and think about the different topics that we've covered. It's kind of gone, oh yeah. And because I kind of find myself, I think, slightly repeating myself. I don't know if the listeners would agree with that. That I feel bang on about the same thing, and connection, why do you do what you do? What's your story? What's your trigger? And that has just brought it all home to me. And I think doing it for 2 years is a long time in the life of a teenager, but because,
long time.
Our kids have really changed in the last 2 years, and I've been on, particularly as my eldest went on a really difficult journey within that, not all the time, but some of it in his academics. And it's been that has been a huge learning process. And then just having this podcast is clarifying what I'm doing, having a deeper understanding of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then maybe some specific things would be, the different topics of having a bit more awareness of maybe some of the dangers. Maybe I was less aware of that side of it. The online stuff, the problems with, the physical problems with, drugs, alcohol, that kind of thing. I knew about a bit, but not in depth. So that's been really helpful and made me maybe be a bit more cautious in some areas. So that's been quite good.
Yeah, the online stuff, and we've been doing a lot more on that recently. And I've always been quite wary of online, and I kept my kids quite low tech when they were younger because I was very conscious that it could cause problems. I think what I've really understood most recently with the research I've done is when you look at governments or any organizations trying to put in place regulations to protect young people, a lot of people seem to come back saying, yeah, but that's the parent's job. And I'm not convinced parents really understand that. I'm not. And I think
maybe that's my switch as well in some of these areas of thinking, that's society's job or that's a school's job. And actually, no, it's really it's too important. It's too dodgy, some of it.
Because
that's a really important point.
Yes, and whether it's actually putting in place some kind of software or something that will protect them from things, or more importantly, having, regular discussions with them about what it is they're accessing and how they feel about it and what they think about the world that they're accessing. So vitally important. And giving it context and being non-judgmental about it, but at the same time explaining why these things are an issue. I think, and I keep seeing people, with tweens where things have gone off the rails and they just didn't realize how critically important. So that for me has really solidified my thinking about the online world.
Interesting.
Not that I want to scare people, but I think we really need to be there on the front line saying, right, I'm taking responsibility for this.
Yeah, and maybe that's where I've thought a little bit on reflection as to, what we've done over the last 2 years is I've maybe my compass point has gone a little bit towards, a little bit more caution, because there's more stuff out there that we really need to take care of. And actually, on a general note, I'm at the moment making 2 photo books. So my younger twins turn 16 in a couple of weeks, which is nuts.
Amazing.
And I made a photo book for my eldest when he turned 16, so now I'm doing it for them, and there are 2 of them. It's taken quite a while. And we have a lot of photos. But it's really fun going back over photos, and it's made me really, really think, actually, so much stuff just doesn't matter.
Really good point.
It just doesn't matter. All these different dramas, these different things that we think are the end of the world when they're happening, they just don't matter. Some of them do, of course, and some of them leave scars, and we have to, work out the best way to approach some of these things. But most of it doesn't matter.
But that's that psychological distance we talked about, where if you're in the middle of something, one of the things you can do is zoom out 5 years from now. Is it going to be important?
Yeah.
And that's a way of getting away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reminder for me in all of this is, yes, it is connection. That's the most important. When I look at photos of us, mucking about, it is connection.
Yes. So I'm going to go back over some of the things that have really impacted me. And I think I started this just when both my daughters had gone into senior school. And to start with, that is something I want to talk about, because I don't know how hard it is for everybody, but most people I talk to say it's tough. And I spoke to one, it was a dad who said, yeah, if your kids are not begging to stay at home in that first year, that's a win, in my opinion. And he'd been through quite a few kids. And I just think it's a massive shift going from a small environment, which most of these kids do, into what happens to be a pool where most of the kids at the top of the school are they're adults. So it can feel quite a hostile environment. It definitely did for me when I moved. And I remember one of my daughters moved up. She had been through the whole COVID lockdown in her final year of primary school, which meant that she missed out on all those opportunities to feel like the big, the owning her position in her school. Moved into her next school, and they were all wearing masks. They were completely controlled. And it was a much, much bigger school, and it felt very hostile because, all of them felt anxious. So they were all on their phones and relying on previous acquaintances to sort of give themselves some social cachet. And it just meant she didn't really have a chance. It was very stressful. And I think we very much underestimated the impact COVID had on our kids. I think parents on the front line could see that, but it impacted their ability to just jostle and make friendships and the fluidity of friendships that used to happen. And I found with her, for example, she developed anxiety in public speaking. And she's a strong, intelligent person. And we tried everything. So we went through we've done 2 episodes on anxiety, which are really useful. They're very much downloaded. So a lot of people struggle with this. And there are techniques you can use, there are breathing techniques. But actually what I discovered for her was removing her from the environment that she was finding so stressful. And we put her onto a debate camp where nobody knew her. She was taught from ground zero how you do this, came back in, and she has been a changed person. And I think it also reflects on kids who don't want to go into school. I see a lot of parents who are struggling with their kids not wanting to go into school, and the school authorities are saying, well, you've got to make them go into school, as if that's going to fix what is essentially another problem. Yeah. It's something else going on there that really needs to be thought through.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to shout out about that. And actually, for all those parents who've got kids who are going through really, really tough times, my daughter just the other day, she's in a debate society. They were supposed to go for a competition, and they have a new person running the club. And this person had basically dropped the ball. She said at the last minute, oh, we've got a competition coming up. It's a big inter-school competition. Nobody had known about it. Nobody had been given any of the title they were supposed to work towards. And she just called up and vented to me. I didn't catch the phone call. I'm what's the point? There's no point going for this. We haven't had any time to prepare. And then I didn't catch her, but she then messaged me back and said, actually, 2 girls put themselves up for it. You need 3. So I just said, okay, I'll do it. And she said, I'd rather go in and fail spectacularly than not put a team forward.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, isn't it? Because public speaking is seemingly the thing that people are most afraid of in life.
Yes.
So to have that practice is amazing. And that's, as we've talked about in the anxiety episodes, feelings of anxiety are completely normal, especially at that age. And practicing and being able to practice in a safe space is the key. And, the same with school people not going to school, being allowed to practice going in and out, it's facing your discomfort in a safe way.
So if you're in the trenches right at that early stage, just hang in there because it can all come right as long as you stay with them.
Yeah, it can all change. And with anxiety particularly, it's the message that's slowly dripping through. I think that having anxious thoughts is normal.
It's normal.
Not a disorder.
No, and that's one of the big problems. So here's another one I was talking about the other day. And it's that I often hear teenagers saying, oh, I think I might have, and you name a disorder, whatever the disorder is. And so here's my response. Okay, take them seriously. Don't dismiss it and say, don't be ridiculous. So why do you think that? What's going on? Very often they'll say, oh, I've seen it online or such and such Johnny said.
Yeah, or it just feels unknown. It feels scary. It's not something they've done before.
Quite often they'll say that they've got this, and you say, so who's Johnny? Oh, Johnny's in your class who's 14 or 13. Okay, so Johnny probably doesn't have any real sort of experience in diagnosing this particular problem. And then
I see what you mean.
Yes,
yeah.
And then going through because very often what they will have done is they'll have thought, oh, I've got this problem. Then they'll go online and they'll find the list of what the symptoms are. And they will think that they've got that. So then go through the list with them. So I've done this myself where I've gone, okay, let's go through this list, talk through the list, and then just say, so for example, I think I'm autistic. Yeah. Okay, so what first on the list? Let's talk about it. Eye contact. Yeah. I struggle with that. And then just say to them, okay, let's talk about struggling with eye contact. Wow, eye contact is really powerful.
Yeah. So really hard.
It's really hard. And actually, when people feel inferior, they will look away. It's an act of submission to look away. So if you hold eye contact with somebody who is your superior for too long, they may see it as a threat. They may see you as trying to overpower them. Or if you maintain eye contact for just a little bit too long with someone who could be a potential romantic partner, they may take it the wrong way, or they may think that you're interested in them, whether you're doing it consciously or subconsciously. But the thing is, it's actually really hard to get right.
Yeah.
And talking them through.
Normalising it. Just normalising it.
Talk them through how, I find it really hard to have conversations. Ah, right. So I used to when I was a teenager. Exactly. When I was a teenager, I spent entire bus rides thinking, how am I going to have conversations? Yeah. Some of the biggest investment banks will send people who they've recruited who are brilliant on courses learning how to make conversations. It's a skill. So I think it's really important for us. This is one of the things I've learned. It's really important for us to engage. If they say, oh, I've got a problem, say, oh, what is it? And then put it into context so they can see it for what it is.
We're all on the spectrum of something or other. I mean, when I have clients who are teenagers, actually the thing that has the most I think the most benefit for them, and I just see their shoulders drop and they go, oh, is to say, whatever it is the issue they're coming with, and it's not always the case, but it often is, to say, you're not broken, there's nothing wrong with you. That is completely normal.
Exactly.
And let's have a look at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And actually, as a parent, you can hark back to when you were a teenager and think, okay, did that affect me? Was I, and then you can tell them stories, and it really calms them.
And there are a lot of well-meaning people out there, maybe in the school system, lots of systems who want to help, help us get rid of feelings that are uncomfortable, the discomfort of anxiety or, those kind of things. And it's almost labelled as something that we need to get rid of, and to do the opposite of that with our kids, whatever the context is just that allows them to go, oh,
yes,
that's okay, I'm all right. Yeah.
And on that note, so another thing I learned quite early on, which made a massive difference to my relationship with both my teens, was this way you have a conversation with your teenager and not overreacting. So we have 2 episodes. We have one which is, how to talk so your teen will listen, and vice versa. And the other one is about how not to overreact, both of which have been very successful. And it's this, I think when our teens tell us something that they've been very upset about, it's so normal to feel upset yourself and to want to jump in and fix it. This is just, it's parenting 101.
It feels really uncomfortable.
Yes, and even now, my daughter every now and then says to me, just so you know, this isn't a biggie, but I'm making it sounds big, but I'm just trying to vent. I've built it up and now I'm talking about it.
Brilliant.
And she knows that I know, and we're both cool with it.
I love that.
But I'm providing her with an opportunity to say, and often it sounds like her school is the worst place in the world. She hasn't got any friends, and I'll be listening to it. And then at the end she goes, oh, thanks. Actually, it's not that bad.
Yeah, mine do that as well. Oh, it's not that bad. Don't worry about it. And actually, do you think, the thing I think is the most important that I take away from all of this, all of the talks that we've had, is taking care of ourselves on the back of that, then not reacting and asking ourselves when we get triggered, which we will, because it's beeping uncomfortable when our kids are struggling, they're in pain, when something is difficult. It's so difficult for us because we don't want to feel that discomfort. We want to fix it for them. Is to ask ourselves, what's going on for me? Why do I find this so uncomfortable? How can I take care of myself? What maybe work I need to do? What I need to look back at my own childhood, my own reactions, my own stuff, so that I can be authentic in this with my kid. That is the best help that we can be.
And I love that.
And it's really hard.
I love that you said that, because that harks back to another conversation I had with one of my daughters, where I am actually very open with them about the struggles I had both as a teenager and with my parents. I try not to blame my parents because I think they had their own issues with their own parenting. But I make it clear that this is how this has impacted me. And I was talking to my daughter about it the other day, and she said, it's so helpful. And when you admit mistakes and when you say that you've done things wrong, it gives me the chance to talk about my own failings. And it's really makes me feel much safer.
Oh, that's really beautiful.
And I loved that, because I think one of the problems we have as parents is we hate it when we get things wrong. It feels like such a massive failure and such an important failure. And the thing I've learned from doing this is that it's so much better, because I've said really stupid things sometimes where I thought I was saying it this way and I wasn't. And I've written it in one of my blogs, and it's actually had a really dramatic impact. And when my kids have said something about it, I've learned that I really have to sit and listen to them and say, gosh, that sounds really hard. And I'm really sorry it felt that way. And that's not what I meant. And you're very loved. And thank you for telling me.
Yeah, thank you for telling me. Thank you for sharing. So it's a safe space. I think that's really beautiful, and it's super healing, because we all say stupid stuff.
Oh my
We're
goodness.
human beings. God, I do all the time. But it's really layered, that, isn't it? That approach is really layered, because it's showing that we're human beings and we've had our own stuff in the past. We make silly comments as well. We're human. We're infallible. We're fallible, I mean. Oh, there we go. I just did it. And also it teaches them how to apologise.
Absolutely.
And I see the ripple effect of that.
Yes.
Sometimes one of my kids goes, Mum, you don't have to apologise for that. And I go, I know, maybe I don't, but I'd like to, and it's important to me. And then they'll go, okay. Because I see them apologising to each other. They just did it the other day. My twins massively fell out in the car. We had a ridiculous car journey. And we had then a conversation when everyone had calmed down. And they got out. We sorted it. We talked it through in a really good way. And then they got out of the car, and they didn't think I could see them. And they just kind of both went, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean that." And they did whatever weird handshake they have.
It's brilliant.
And so they learn,
important.
They learn by apologising is super important.
And they're watching us, not listening to us.
All the time. Exactly. And we are human beings. We are not robots.
Exactly. And one of the other things that really impacted me was when I looked at motivation and academic motivation when your kids they're struggling in school, because this happens a lot to kids. They might have been doing really well before, and then it all drops off when they go into secondary school. Trust me, they can't. There's too much going on. And things, when their usual framework changes, we need to be in there with them. And kind of going, okay, do we need scaffolding in place? And, do we need to ease back on some of the other things that they're doing just so that they can actually catch up? Because nothing's ever linear. The growth is never linear. And I realized with one of my daughters that she had a sort of form of learnt dependence, which was down to, I think, the way that her school had talked to her, but also how I had been talking to her. And it was a very difficult process explaining to her that the path that she was on was not the path that she thought she was on. And that and that was fine. That was fine to be on a less academic path. But if she wanted to be on an academic path, then what she was doing wasn't getting her there, and explaining what that meant in the future. So I actually did a very clear guideline of how these things all feed into each other as you get older, because I realized she didn't know that. And I think giving your children, we all think that it's really obvious, and life isn't, it's not a race, and it's not linear, because you can take breaks in it, you can make changes and things. But we'd still have to explain to our kids, if they say, I want to go to university, and right down here where they are, there's no sign that they're going to be suited to going to university. We need to really show them what that means so that they can understand it. And they can understand how they can take ownership over the steps they need to take. So what I did was by going through this whole process, I handed back to her responsibility. I said, I'm not going to take responsibility. You take responsibility for the work that you do. I'm going to support you. And it's had a most amazing impact.
That's amazing. I mean, that's really beautiful. I had a similar experience over these 2 years, and it also really, really made me walk my talk, that horrible phrase. I don't like it, but it's appropriate here. My eldest was really struggling with his A-levels for lots of different reasons. We're still not 100% sure what really happened. And he's fine. He's absolutely fine. But really, really sitting with all of that and explaining to him in a very similar way, what do you want? And what do you want my role to be in this? We were really specific.
Yes,
a few times as well. Like, you have to repeat these things. And from a very calm space, what do you want? And then how can I help? Do you want my help, first of all? And what can I do? And, we had an agreement. He wanted me to nudge him. He wanted that. Yeah. Okay, then I'll do that. And we took it up to review a few times. But really, really, understanding that whatever happens, you'll be fine. Like, there are so many ways to live a life.
Yes. And so keeping the calmness on that side, because we panic. And he's fine, and I have no idea what the rest of his life will look like. Who knows? But really, that kind of, and it meant that in a long time, actually, that we could have totally gone another way with all of it. We kept a really good connection, and it's all worked out. And it was really challenging, but the connection was always the most important. What do you want? How can I help you? Can I help you? And how should we approach this together? Yes, yeah,
or not, if that's not what you want.
Yeah. And I think in terms of taking personal responsibility, the other thing that I did quite early on, which made a dramatic impact for me and my kids, was money management and giving them an allowance where they were taking personal responsibility. Because up until that point, if it was a friend's birthday, they'd say, "Oh, Mum, can you buy them a present?" And there would be tons of friends that they wanted presents for. Or if they wanted to go out with their mate and get some treats, there would be a constant sort of, "Oh, can I have money for this? Can I have money?" And it's not that that's such a big issue. It's more that, I don't have unlimited resources, but actually much more importantly, they had no concept of what it was that the money was used for. And so by giving them, I talked about this in one of our episodes, by giving them an allowance, it's dramatically changed their viewpoint of their place in the world. And they're both big savers now. And they're both very diligent about, so for example, when my daughter goes down to stay with her friends in Bristol, she always books ahead to make sure she gets the best train fares. And, and these little things really make a difference because they're mindful of their spending patterns. And this was definitely not where we were when this started. And we do come back in again. We talk about it. And when, recently one of them asked for more money and said, I'm struggling with what I've got in terms of what's going out. And I said, okay, I'm not trying to punish you with this. I'm actually trying to make sure that you are mindful. So here are the things I want you to be mindful of. Fine, I'll give you the more money for that. And I think it's just made them so much more conscious. And I love that. I'm very grateful. And they so much more, they've developed their own style as a result because they were buying their own clothes. And because the older one's been practicing her style, using her, mostly going to charity shops and things like that. But actually now she buys capsule wardrobes and she's got a very distinct style.
What's a capsule wardrobe?
Oh, I talked them through this when I actually handed them the money. So I explained what a capsule wardrobe was. It's a wardrobe that fits each season so that you have very few items that all will work together. And it means that for that season, you only buy a few things. And then if you buy high quality stuff that looks really good on you, you don't need to keep buying more stuff. You just add to that wardrobe and it suits each season. I like to think like that. I've got clothes I've been wearing for decades.
Yeah, no, me too. I think I've got one of those already.
Yeah, capsule wardrobe. And I have a one in, one out policy. So if I buy more clothes, if I buy another pair of trousers, I say one pair of trousers has to go. And that then makes me think, okay, are these better than anything in my wardrobe? And so it actually puts the brakes on, just pointless spending. And that's how I like to work.
Brilliant.
And so I've been teaching that. And I think the final thing is relationships, because you've got a son who's had a relationship. My daughter has a relationship. And the thing that I think I hadn't really thought a lot about relationships before. We've talked about sex and we've talked about all those sorts of things. And those are the sort of nitty gritty of it. But the relationship she's in is the most kind, loving, thoughtful relationship I could possibly imagine. Beautiful. And to me, that is all that matters.
Yeah, we talked about that in our podcast, in the episode, didn't we? That it's, we're all so terrified about sex and all of that. But if we can tell them, the most important thing is all those things you've just named. Yes. And if your daughter has that for her first relationship, that's just amazing. My
goodness. How I'm like, thank goodness. Yeah. So yes,
and we need to model that.
We need to model it
if we can. If maybe not with our romantic partner, but just in general in life, and emphasize how important those things are. And it's not just don't get pregnant.
yeah, and like you said, actually, if you've got a tense relationship at home and you can't really model it with your own partner, you can talk to your teen about what you think is good, a good relationship, and make your relationship with your teenager good, so that they know how you communicate. They know what it feels like to be listened to and respected, because that will all come out in the relationships they form. I really, really believe that. I've really seen that happening. Yes.
And it can be through your friendships as well. It doesn't have to be through your romantic partner.
Exactly. So that's it. Well, on that note, we'll be taking a break from regular episodes over the Christmas period. Susie, what are you doing?
I am, what am I doing? My kids are going to their dad's for Christmas in Denmark, which they are all looking forward to, which will be lovely. And I am going with my partner to an Airbnb to do absolutely nothing for about 4 days. And I cannot wait. It's all or nothing in my
world. We're not
all
jealous.
Or nothing.
That's amazing.
What are you doing, Rachel?
We've got my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law and his girlfriend coming for Christmas. And our Christmas has turned into, as they've got older, pajamas until kind of midday.
Perfect.
Where we just sit around chatting and laughing and no stress. I actually buy a Christmas meal that's I've worked out, given if it's not a massive amount of people, it's at the same price. And I spent too many years in the kitchen not getting to play with my kids because I kept thinking, why do I find Christmas not that enjoyable? It's because I want to play. I actually want to play with my kids. So we eat lunch, which is fine. It's great, but it's nothing special. And then we play games all afternoon.
Amazing.
And then we'll watch a film. And it's just the best. We laughed like drains all last year. And it's a way we just hide away from the world and we don't worry about anything else. And I love that as a Christmas. So I think everybody's got their own Christmases.
Yeah.
And whatever you do with your teenagers will become your Christmas.
Yeah.
And you can shift it. Yes. You don't have to carry on with the same traditions. No. Come up with ones with them that suit them.
Yeah.
Check in with them. What do they want to do?
Yeah, yeah. And that reminds me of what maybe I think is most important about reminding myself about parenting is, like, most days I feel like I'm absolutely just winging it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's the beauty of this podcast, is that we are all just winging it every day. There are no answers.
Yep.
And it's just sharing and reassuring ourselves that we're doing the best that we can and that there are other ideas out there that might be useful for you. They might not be. But yeah, we're just kind of on this winging it
judgment.
Right.
And that goes for yourself too. Don't judge yourselves.
Yeah. And some days I literally think, I have no idea what I'm doing. Absolutely not.
Most days.
Yep.
I'll create a blog with all of those episodes we've mentioned. And if you have any other subjects for episodes in the new year, I would love to hear your suggestions. Brilliant. Because honestly, this is your podcast. And we have had so many great ideas. If you are struggling with something, guaranteed someone else in our community will be struggling with it, probably hundreds of thousands of people. But, there will be other people who are battling with this and we can all learn from each other.
Yeah.
So let us know.
And then nothing is too little.
Nothing's too little, yes. If you want to leave us a review, that would be lovely. Christmas present. You can go to www.teenagersuntangled.com. You can also put it on all the podcasts. I think platforms now have ways that you can leave reviews. I'll be popping onto social media from time to time, doing little helpful reels about things I've noticed.
Ooh,
Susie,
can't wait.
Susie does her blog. I don't know how much she'll be doing, but
no, I don't know yet. Depends.
Yes.
Probably not a lot.
I think generally, guys, we are just winging it.
Yeah, we're just winging it.
No, we're just. The great thing about not being paid for this is that we basically can do what we want.
Exactly.
So that's good. Okay, so Susie, once more, how can people contact you? Because they might have problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at www.mindful-life.co.uk, and in that are links to all my social media platforms, and you can also book a free 15-minute chat with me if you so wish. Not on Christmas Day.
And not while she's in the Airbnb. She may not respond.
No, that I'm going to take off the slots for those days.
Exactly. Don't forget to hit the follow button and you won't miss any of the new episodes when they come out. That's it for this year. Wishing you all a loving, happy end of year. And if you're thinking of setting a New Year resolution, I even have an episode for that. Yay!
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Don't do it. Bye-bye.